Just to start on that Niall Quinn vision for Irish football thing, I just want to read you a piece without telling you who wrote it first, if that's okay, listeners. So, I mean, Irish football is in turmoil. It starts off, in less than a fortnight, Ireland face two important soccer games. Denmark, even little Gibraltar, must be rubbing their hands in glee. Goes on to say, God knows what new manager Mick McCarthy feels about the shenanigans of his employers, the FAI. Inquiries, reviews, audits galore, being held to investigate recent events. Government funding halted. Sponsors of the game watching anxiously. UEFA have ridden to the rescue, promising funding in the face of financial stress. The players saying little, but must be bewildered about the fate of Irish soccer. Declan Rice, torn between playing for Ireland or England, can only be thanking his lucky stars he didn't opt for an Irish team led by the FAI. And so it continues, and on it goes. Written by, I mean, you would think, ooh, maybe Eamon Sweeney, maybe Tommy Conlon, sharpening the knife and having a little, I'm going to have a little cut at the FAI this week. That is written by the Minister for Sport, Shane Ross, in the main section of the Sunday Independent. And he's having a bloody good time. Am I just wrong to think the tone of this is odd? Someone texted me this morning, a colleague here in News Talk said, it's like Boris Johnson taken to, writing in one of his pieces. It's a weird kind of almost joyful relish that he's talking about the whole thing with.
Well, I suppose it's for someone who's under the mistaken impression that sport is supposed to be fun and jolly, and you adopt this tone of kind of bantery kind of tone. Of course, this is completely false impression. It's a matter of deep seriousness. Look, I guess Shane considers that, quite rightly, I suppose, that you will never go wrong by having a crack at the FAI.
I think he's seen which way the wind is blowing.
Yeah, kind of.
Political own goal jumps to mind.
I mean, it is tragic.
Open goal.
Yeah, his much needed reforms of the Irish judicial system, have been, I suppose, stymied by vested interests. But I think he's okay on this one. I think he feels he's more or less a free run here. Well, the two
things I saw him do this week: one, this column, and we'll continue with it in a second, and also then doing what I think 3 out of 5 politicians have done this week, which is find a swing somewhere, sit in it, and do that kind of thing. So he was up to those 2 bits this week.
I have to say that of the 2 pieces, right, there is perhaps a little more kind of wisdom in that one, such as it is, than in the one you read beforehand, the one about Quinn's big plan for Irish game, right? By simply saying that, having one League of Ireland team qualify for the group stages of the Champions League by 2027, the only thing we know about football is that you can't plan beyond next Tuesday, right? It's demonstrably absurd. There are no 5-year plans. Everyone who comes in with a 5-year, Gerard Houllier had a 5-year plan. It's like the old Mike Tyson line, everybody has a plan until they get a punch in the nose.
Is it different at international level? Like, didn't Germany come up with a plan after they failed around the turn of the century and revolutionised things?
No, I don't think so. I mean, these things should be normal. These things should be just normal, right? That if you have a system, you try to be good. I doubt if Germany are not like Ireland anyway. I don't think there's ever a valid comparison can be made between German football and ours, right? Yeah. But just this notion that to actually name a date, right? Qualifying for the semi-finals of the World Cup by 2038. Well, we got to the quarter-final in 1990, so who knows? You never know. I mean, it's kind of ludicrous to be, but that's the way the corporate world works, it is, right? Yeah, they're always at that stuff.
And they have to do a bit of prognosing. I think deep down Niall Quinn might know 2027 as the date for Champions League qualification.
And driving
might
change.
Be a bit strange, but I think he understands. He'll be presenting to Shane Ross. This is kind of the way this whole thing has to work.
Oh no, I mean, I'm sure you'll find in the words drive change. This will drive change, right? You have to have that in as well.
Yeah.
So it's just the format of the way the modern world works in that kind of culture, I suppose.
You're a fan of,
I'm not a fan of it as such, but I accept it. I acknowledge it.
Just to elaborate on Shane Ross, I'll get your thoughts in a sec, Gav. He says, we were appalled by the arrogance shown by the FAI board at the Joint Oireachtas Committee on Sport. He talks about this National Stakeholders Forum in Dublin's Mansion House Friday, May 31st. He says, we want Friday's forum to usher in a departure in Irish soccer, led from the grassroots, not by a small group of people who've been in charge for too long. And he does, by the way, later on mention how himself and Brendan Griffin look forward to hearing the sincere but seldom heard views of voices of Irish soccer, such as Niall Quinn, Brendan Menton and Pat Fenlon. He says the League of Ireland will be given the respect it deserves. I suppose the headline-grabbing news is that he is not impressed with Noel Mooney's appointment, who has taken charge over the next 6 months. He says the FAI appointed Noel Mooney in the face of the opposition, not only of Sport Ireland, but also the government. Recent days, the FAI have been desperately trying to spin this retrograde appointment to the media as a prudent development. He says public confidence in the FAI, already at its lowest ebb, will now hit rock bottom. The decision, writes Shane Ross, to install Mooney was a backward step. The Irish people have a right to know why the top brass of the FAI choose him to take the role of general manager, in brackets, chief executive by another name. He goes on to say, Mooney is Irish, former devoted employee of the FAI, now working for UEFA. There was no known selection process, no interview for his shock appointment. The FAI board sought him out for the job. They nearly all know him of old. If this cynical manoeuvre succeeds, they will feel eminently comfortable with him. He knows the FAI ropes. Quite strong there on Mooney.
Yeah, and look, I think that he is articulating a concern that a lot of people would have, you know, because, you know, the FAI are moving on, but it's a hard sell when you have a Noel Mooney who used to work with the FAI, marketing the League of Ireland, and then left for UEFA, calling John Delaney an inspiration, and he turned up at the AGM in 2017 and said, I mean, the FAI is one of our best run associations in Europe. And there's also the problem, like a famous FAI problem that has been a problem for the last couple of months. They haven't had a press conference about it. You know, they're promising a sit-down with Mooney and President Donald Conway early in June, but they just did an interview. There's a 50-minute interview with Cathal Dervan, the Director of Communications, on the FAI YouTube site with him, and he says, I'm not interested in the chief executive job, I'm here for 6 months and I'll go. But why don't you just put him in front of the wider press? Because the FAI have an image problem with appointing Mooney, and it makes it easy for us to write this piece. And like Eamon Sweeney in the back of the sports section of the Sindo sums it up, is the FAI don't seem to care what you think. They don't seem to care what anyone in this country thinks. UEFA are paying the Abbottstown piper at the moment, so theirs is the only tune which matters. So I just wish, you know, it's a tough sell, basically, to bring Mooney in, given his past links. I do want to say something about Shane Ross, because Ross does mention 2 years ago, I'm quoting now, he reappeared from UEFA back at his old stomping ground, the familiar pasture of the FAI AGM. His praise of the board was cringeworthy. The FAI, he declared, is one of our most progressive and well-run federations. It really is a super federation, and you can be proud of yourselves, the board and all the members here. Wow, he finishes. Yeah. But I just would, like, Shane Ross then was on, I mean, I don't necessarily believe that Ross should believe that praise of the FAI should disavow, shouldn't make your opinion not matter here, because Ross himself was on 100%. Was on News Talk. He said, he was asked, because this was, I think it was someone, Pat Kenny, I think.
It was Jonathan Healy filling in for Pat Kenny, and he was asked about John Delaney and the FAI. Yeah, we're talking October territory last year.
It was after O'Neill and Keane had been fired, and there was this wider, and this is actually when Niall Quinn started talking about we need a new vision, and there was this petition to get rid of John Delaney. And he was asked about John Delaney, and he said, my own experience actually on the ground, I have to say, a weekend experience, is that the fans are very enthusiastic of what the FAI is doing, and they think that the FAI is doing a very good job.
And then Jonathan Healy in that discussion said, are you sure? Like, John Delaney, there's no issues there? And Ross was, no, it's all, I hear great stuff, you know, seems to be doing a fantastic job grassroots, and it's all great. Like, he's run a million miles away from that now. He's not certainly highlighting that he thought that, less than 6 months ago? And
like, he was slow to come out back when, around the Oireachtas committees and so on, when all the politicians were having a go. He was notably slow to, he was one of the last to come out. So, look, I'm not saying that what he's saying here isn't fair. I mean, there are, like, it's just a bad PR look that Noel Mooney, who has been so associated with the FAI for so long, is this guy. And what's he doing? Like, you see, we don't really know. I mean,
I didn't bother to watch, frankly, the FAI TV interview with him. I presume it wasn't a grilling, or did he go to great depths about what
he was asked, I mean, he was asked about the various things that people will have concerns about. He was asked about, you know, your comments at the FAI AGM. You know, they didn't mention John Delaney by name, and they didn't mention what the comments were, and he talked about, well, you know, in many ways, like at grassroots level, the FAI are doing loads of good work, and it's just a pity that all that's going on above them is overshadowing this great work. It's the same stuff we've heard all the time.
No, it's true. Look, Shane Ross wasn't the first to get stuck into the FAI, same as he wasn't the first this week to sit in a swing, but he sure as hell is enjoying doing both. That's in the main section of the Sunday Independent. It is on page 8.